Welcome to Adjusted Reality, a podcast series trusted by the adjusted and brought to you by the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress, where we learn from athletes, celebrities, influencers, and healthcare professionals about how to optimize health in a fun, relatable way. Join me, Dr. Sherry McAllister, as I speak with Gifty Enright about her magnificent book, Octopus on a Treadmill: Women, Success, Health, and Happiness. Gifty Enright is an author, an international speaker specializing in women in the workplace and well-being. Gifty has spoken in many places, such as Wells Fargo Bank, Oxford University, Citibank, and Tedx Women, to name just a few. She's also a highly regarded writer, and her work is regularly published by international outlets such as Thrive Global. She's also been featured in Accountancy and Business. It is an absolute pleasure to welcome you to the show, Gifty.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we're crossing over the seas to get our UK input. And that, I think, is really quite wonderful because Adjusted Reality has grown so vastly. And I love watching the growth because our listeners are doing that for us. And I think they're going to enjoy this particular podcast, Octopus on a Treadmill, the book. It is such a fun and intriguing title. What was your inspiration for that, and what does it mean for you?
So when I was writing my book, I was just searching for what to call it. And because I wanted to cover a lot of things, and I thought, what would really capture the essence of what I want to say? And honestly, if I wasn't going to be sued, I was going to call it How to Live Without Prozac, honestly. But I would have been sued. So I thought I need a new name altogether. And it was my husband actually that suggested the name. And the moment he said it, I knew it then. That was it. But in terms of what I was trying to capture is women, our well-being, and the number of balls we have to juggle on a daily basis, and we don't have the luxury of doing it standing still. You know, you have to be doing the juggle whilst on the treadmill, and you need all of the 8 arms. And so that was my inspiration.
I think your husband is quite fantastic, and he has a whole other calling if he's not into the creative realm of life. And I do really understand. It's so figurative, and it's also very literal for a lot of women and men that are listening to understand the juggling that goes on in our daily lives. And it hasn't gotten easier after we've been through such immense stress in our lives over the last couple of years. And we all have faced it. We all have pushed through with a resilient tone. And I thank all our listeners for being able to keep coming back for your adjusted reality and what it really means. The one place in your book, Gifty, and I read it front to cover, and I think it's an inspirational book as well as motivational, is that there is this holistic portion to it. What was your motivation to explore holistic healing alternatives? And then for our listeners, because sometimes when we cross the seas, words can mean different things. And I've learned that with a funny grin with several words that I've used and had the shocked look of, we don't use that word here. So please tell us, what does holistic healing mean to you? And what was your motivation to explore this holistic healing alternative?
Right, so holistic for me means that looking at things in the whole, so not going one dimensional. So when it comes to healing, a lot of people just think you just grab a bunch of tablets and you're sorted. And it doesn't quite work like that. It might deal with the symptoms, but it doesn't deal with the cause. So, and then sometimes a bunch of tablets doesn't actually sort out the symptoms either. And then when that happens, then what? And in my case, I was going around from specialist to specialist, clutching a spreadsheet of 14 different symptoms. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. and nobody could give me a definitive answer. And it was only when I decided to take matters in my own hands, and I realized that the answer didn't actually wasn't just in one realm, as it were. So for me, holistic is looking at the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects, of your life, and basically getting yourself back into balance. And in that way, if one side is failing, another side can sort of prop you up until the other side comes and supports you. So, and so when you look at the holistic side of things, you also, for me, what I found is the body has got its own healing systems, and you need to learn to work with it because it knows what to do if you give it the right environment. It's like putting a seed in the ground. If it's in the right soil, the seed will grow. If it's in the right environment, if you give your body what it needs, it knows how to heal itself. But most of the time, we live in chaos. Our lifestyles are quite all over the place, and our lifestyles can also be one-dimensional. And so the body hardly ever gets the chance to reset itself. And that is why the holistic bit is important, because it forces you to come into balance.
Gifty, you may not know this, but you just sung the sheet of a chiropractor around the globe, and chiropractic is growing on a vast scale. And I think it's immensely because of what you just said, which is the balance of life. And I have always looked to the greats and saw what did they gift back to our current generation. And Albert Einstein is one I cannot ever forget. And his quote was, "Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving." And that moving is physical, mental, emotional, and spiritually. So I think for where your book stands, I think it has a massive impact on, you got to keep moving forward, and you have to take responsibility. It is up to you. You just said you had 14 symptoms that in fact were unrealized on a diagnostic scale, that you're going to ask for help. And if you wouldn't mind, and a lot of this is really, there's a listener out there today that is asking themselves, I have all these symptoms, but I have nowhere to go. I'm not sure what to do next. Can you share a little bit about what were your symptoms? And as you started to see these symptoms, how did you realize that the reset is necessary?
Yes. So I was a woman of a certain age, shall we say, and I guess I still am a woman of a certain age. But this was very early in my 40s, and suddenly I was having headaches all the time. I was just tired, constantly tired, to the point where I will come home from work, sit on the sofa, and that would be me gone. I was that tired. I was having these mood swings. I was very irritable. I was achy. I had these achy joints all the time. I had digestive issues. I was having recurring UTI. I think you guys call it UTI as well. Yeah,
correct. Urinary tract infections. Yes.
Yeah. So there was that, and I mean, it was just going on in terms of what. And then I was literally, I'd be in a meeting speaking to somebody, and I wouldn't remember their name. So I was having memory lapses. I mean, it got so bad. One time I was coming home, and I got to this junction that I'd been driving on for years, and I couldn't remember whether I was turning left or right. And that's when I knew that, hang on, I shouldn't be having this, shouldn't be happening at this age, and I wasn't sure what was wrong with me. Did I have early onset of dementia? What was wrong with me? Did I have some cancer? What? I just didn't know what was wrong with me. And I thought I needed somebody to tell me, Gifty, this is what is wrong with you. And I couldn't find that person. I was going from specialist to specialist, and basically it was, yeah, you're fine. Your baselines are fine. You're fine. And my life the quality of my life was abysmal. Absolutely. Oh, and I had fibroids, so there was a heavy period, so I was anemic, the whole shebang. It was just not, it was not a nice life at that point in my life.
I think that it comes to a point where you start to recognize, and sometimes as we almost put aside the symptoms because we're doing the juggling and we're trying to keep on that treadmill, is we say, okay, there's a symptom, I'm going to put it into this box. Okay. And I'll deal with it later, because that's what women do. It's, oh, my children need X, my husband needs Y, my work needs A. And so we become the end of the road, and we put all of these symptoms in a little box. And every once in a while they jump out of the box and we're like, I really can't not address this headache because it's shutting me down. Mm-hmm. And I think, Gifty, what is so important when reading your book is that you recognize that priority is health. And I think that's one of the key areas, that focusing on it and recognizing it, because maybe you could explain, you have an extraordinary background in your career that kind of drives you. Can you give our audience a little bit of information of what you've been up to? Because I've seen you on stages with thousands and thousands of people, and you're constantly writing and producing and getting your life and your children's and your husband's life on track. So tell our audience a little bit about the stress that was occurring in the job that you had.
Yeah, it was just, and it's interesting because now I think what I do is way more stressful than what I was doing when at the height of my problems, right? But I don't feel stressed out now. My hair is not falling out. And I forgot to mention that my hair was falling out too. But it was just, it was, at that time I was in consulting, and, it was just holding down a full-time job and being a mother, having young children. And so you're the mother, you're the daughter, you're the wife, you're the sister, and all those hats that we wear. And I just found myself spinning out of control because I was not a priority in my life. I had other stakeholders, and for some reason, I decided their needs were more important than mine. And so I prioritized them, put myself at the bottom of the pile. And by doing that, I was actually doing them a disservice, because when I got irritable, they're the ones that got it in the neck. They're the ones that I was screaming at. They're the ones I was taking out my frustration on. It was when I wasn't feeling good in myself, my poor husband, and that's how come he was able to come up with the name, because he'd lived it with me, in terms of firsthand experience. And I just didn't know how to manage stress. I didn't know how to get myself from that stressed out state into a different emotional state. And like now, as you say, I mean, my life is still insanely busy. At any one day, I'm not quite sure what is going to happen in my diary, because I speak, I write, I coach, and any of those things. I mean, you do TV work. You just never know when the phone call will come to say, what do you think of this? Okay, right. See you in the studio tomorrow morning, so it is that crazy. But the difference now is I know how to live. I have brought myself back from the brink. I know how to bring myself into balance. I know how to process my stress. I know how to feed my body. I know how to exercise my body. I know how to process my thoughts. And that is the difference. And that is what allows me to keep a crazy diary, but not get crazy in the process.
It's beautiful. As you say it, I can feel the energy just ooze from you. And if you're listening on Adjusted Reality, I have to say there is a visual component that you can find on f4cp.org to actually see the video. We're going to be streaming this on YouTube as well. But if you can see Gifty, she beams radiance. It's just, you cannot help but go, oh yeah, she's a woman on fire. And I have to ask, I can't imagine the woman before Octopus on the treadmill and, what that woman was like, because you're so vibrant now. And I want to go back to that time. And it's a very difficult time that you had to go through. And I think oftentimes we do have to grow through what we go through on an epic scale. And you're so authentic. I think in today's world, people get that life is hard and they have to be authentic about it and really understand that it's not every day that you feel fired up and ready to go. Go back into that time, Gifty, for me and tell me, was there like one thing that started to make you feel like, you know what, I'm improving? Or was there a turning point that you can actually pinpoint? Because for some there may be never a turning point. It just kept escalating. It's like going up the escalator. You're at the bottom and slowly but surely you're starting to rise. Tell me a little bit about that.
So in terms of the point where the low that I hit, one day in the office, I used to work in one of these sort of campuses, with different buildings and stuff. And the restaurant was in a different building, which was, I don't know, 2 minutes walk away. And I found myself standing in my building thinking, God, please give me the energy to be able to walk to the other building. I just didn't have enough energy to walk to the other building for lunch. And I thought, this is insane, right? So I had dragged myself through the day, got done what I had to do, done my meetings. But when it came to lunch, I'd run out of energy. So I constantly found myself at a place where I didn't have enough energy to do the day. And I just, when you hit that point, everything is an uphill climb, right? Everything overwhelms you. You just feel like you are losing on all fronts because, the kids just have to say something and you're like, nah, I can't cope. One more thing and that's it. I'm going to snap, And when I went on my healing journey and changed things, and I practically changed my lifestyle, turned everything inside out. What changed was my energy levels. Right? I started having enough energy to do the day. I wasn't waking up tired. I wasn't waking up irritable. I wasn't waking up thinking, oh God, here's another day I have to, go in and pretend I'm okay. And to this day, I don't take that for granted. The fact that at the end of the day, in the evenings, I have enough energy, if I so choose, to watch telly, because I could never do that. I just fall asleep. I just didn't have enough energy. And so for me, that was when, things started changing, when I started having enough energy. And I mean, if you don't have enough energy, you're not exercising. And then it becomes the catch-22, right? And so having enough energy to just do the mundane stuff and then some left over to exercise and release more energy into my body. And then suddenly you start, feeling stronger. And then obviously after exercise, you think, yay, I can take on the world. Let's go. And all that. So for me, that was the one thing that started getting me back and feeling strong in myself and feeling confident in myself. Because also when you feel strong in yourself, when the challenges are coming, you're like, okay, whatever. Is that all you got, right? Let them at me. But when you're in overwhelm, you run away from challenges. You don't want challenges because you're in deficit, So I hope I answered your question. But for me, it was the change in the energy levels. That was what gave me hope. That was what made me feel like I was doing something right and that I needed to do more of that.
This is a monumental moment of understanding. And you said something that may have been missed. So I want to bring it up because it is, in my mind, the signal and the noise is the symptoms were the noise in your life, but you said something really important, which really is the piece here is you needed enough energy to exercise to increase your energy. And now a lot of people are sitting there thinking, that doesn't make any sense, because if you exercise, you're giving out energy, but in fact, it's just the opposite. When you exercise, you're giving your body back the energy because you're releasing a lot of the toxins that actually build up in the day. Thoughts, traumas, and contemplating the tightness that we carry with us, the tension, thoughts, traumas, and tensions in our life. When you energy your body back to a level of balance, you're giving that away. Those unfortunate things that come up in our day, you exercise and you release that, bringing back the energy. So for you, was there one thing that you could say that started to increase your energy that you took on and started to notice it?
Yeah. So first of all, I sorted out my sleep. That was also very important, because there's a lot of housekeeping that goes on in our sleep that we don't know of. So we just, so although I was tired and falling asleep, it doesn't mean I was sleeping well. Do you know what I mean? And so it was more sorting out my sleep hygiene, and I was quite religious about it, in terms of, sorting out my sleep, which is what I did. And so rather than waking up tired, I wasn't waking up tired anymore, which meant that, I wasn't starting from a deficit. And then, of course, I also sorted out my diet as well. So it was, I did lots of different things. And then, of course, there was the exercise as well. And, making sure I was having enough water as well. But that is all the kind of physical things I did. But that's just one side of the equation. The physical is just one part of the story. And because what you're saying about the thoughts and the trauma and the tensions, they drain you. So the emotional drain on your energy. So you can do all the physical things right. If you're stressed out, if you're traumatized, if there's tension, there's still an imbalance, so that also drains you. And so for me, it was like stemming that flow, processing my anxiety, processing my stresses and tensions, and all the rest of it. So, so that, if you like, is the emotional side of it. And then, I always had a spiritual framework that I operated in that helped me a lot. But, when the other things are not going well, it's hard for it to complement. So, listen, if you don't have enough energy and you think you're going to sit there and meditate, forget it, you fall asleep. So
true. That is very true.
You need energy to manage your thoughts in meditation, or to even go sit and meditate. So they all kind of feed off each other. So when you sort one out, the other one kind of, it feeds into that, and then it feeds into the other one as well. But for me, it was just deciding, okay, I'm going to fix this, 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 and just enjoying how my body started feeling, enjoying what I could do with my body now rather than falling asleep, enjoying the fact that I've always had a good memory. And so when I was having those memory lapses, it was driving me insane. My mom is 86. She's as sharp as they get. And so for me, in my 40s, just not to be able to remember people's name mid-conversation, that was a travesty, right? And so to get that clarity of mind back, I felt I had come back. It made me feel vital. It made me feel vibrant. It just made me feel alive.
It's critical when we start suffering. And for those out there that are listening right now, if you relate to Gifty's story and the symptoms that are coming out, there's a place that we have to start. Going back to the greats, and it's Socrates, and it's really the secret. When someone from the past, who is one of the greatest philosophers, gives you the opportunity to dive into a secret, then I think we should learn from it. And it's Socrates' quote: "The secret to change is to focus all your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new." And Gifty's story is exactly that. She focused all her energies throughout the pieces that we just talked about, which is, here I am with these thoughts, these traumas, these toxins that are coming into my life. And I need to be able to get back to what's really important, which is the reset. Start building the new Gifty, the Gifty that is going to be okay to sit and meditate, the Gifty that wants to sleep well and be well. Because I very much agree. If there's one thing that throws the train off the track for me, it's a poor night's sleep, because then it's like fuzzy. Everything's fuzzy, especially when you travel. And Gifty, I know you travel a lot, is that it's not easy in a hotel to get the sleep that you would get at home. And it's not easy to eat as well. And it's certainly not easy to have the type of exercise and enthusiasm when you're on the road and you're thinking, okay, do I iron my outfit, or do I do, 10 minutes of Pilates? Which one do I do? So let's go back to one thing that you had said, and that's trauma. It's looking back on injuries and pieces that have come into your life. And what have you learned from this experience in terms of your body, physically, the body that Gifty was put into, and a little bit about that balance once you started getting it back?
So I almost died when I had my second child. And at one point, I found myself, I'd had two major surgeries, and I just labored to have a baby on top of that. So it's like three things going on with this body. I'd naturally labored, had a baby, and then had two major surgeries. So the body was just, traumatized. Didn't know what had hit it. I mean, I it was so traumatized, I stopped lactating, because it just went into just preservation and looking after me, and rather than lactating. So I had, I guess, the privilege of watching the body do its thing, and watching the body prioritize what needs to be done. And then when it felt safe enough, I started lactating again. But there was a time where, it stopped. And so there is a hierarchy to the body in terms of, where it diverts the resources depending on what is going on. And it's just trusting that it knows there's a healing mechanism, there's a self-healing mechanism. It knows that. But when, you get traumatized or anything that happens, the best thing you can do is to provide the right environment for the body to do its thing. But we don't do that, rather than feeding yourself the best premium food ever. And by premium food, I don't mean expensive food. I mean the good, whole foods that sustain you, rather than eating substances and pretending they're food. I mean, I was watching a film recently. I forget what the film was called. And what it said was, what most people call food is a cry for help. And that's true. Right? It's not food at all. It's just substances. And it's just learning how to eat well for your body, and putting the right things in there, and giving it the mental and emotional space that it needs to do the healing that it needs to do. And also trusting that it knows how to heal itself, and giving it the space and yourself the grace. Right? Because sometimes you're stressed out. Sometimes something comes and knocks you sideways. And rather than pushing through, it is knowing that, hang on, this is not a time to push through. This is a time to retreat and restore. Because if you don't find the time to retreat and restore, you're always in go, 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 go. Somewhere along the line, you're just gonna run out. And the body then will start throwing up all sorts, because you're not giving it a chance to recuperate and do whatever it needs to do. So, I mean, in terms of trauma, it's just knowing what you need to do, providing your body with the right environment, and then watching the body do its thing. And I mean, I'll give you an example of my husband, who was due to run the London Marathon. This was going back maybe a few years now, and suddenly he'd been training, and suddenly he was getting this pain in his thigh, and couldn't train, and he was traumatized by this because he's like, hang on, this is a London Marathon. I've got a place in the London Marathon, because it's very hard to get a place in that, and he was distraught about the fact that he wasn't going to be able to do the marathon, and he was being given painkillers and all sorts. He tried all sorts, and injection in the thigh, whatever, and it just wasn't working. And he went to see a chiropractor, of all people, and the chiropractor just said to him, "It's not your thigh, it's not your leg at all, it's your back." And honestly, by him doing whatever adjustment he was doing, and my husband taking his time, giving himself time to adjust and everything, within 2 weeks he was back running, and he was able to go do the London Marathon, right? So I mean, this was not magic. It was more knowing what was wrong, putting yourself in the right environment, and allowing the body to do its thing.
That's an excellent story. And it's so true, because oftentimes we think the area of the problem is exactly where the problem is. And your husband is a unique example of being able to be in the right environment, being able first to know what the problem is. And for you, you had to recognize something's not right, and I need to fix it. I need to take control. The doctors only know symptoms. And then they got to figure out from that symptom what could be the appropriate cause, because once you get to the cause, the symptom will typically go away. And what an immensely important story is, you could have treated that leg all day long and nothing would have changed. And what a success story to be able to say, I went to the environment that was allowing my body to heal, because the cause of the issue is now being addressed. And that could go fundamentally for so many things, especially in grief. We've been through some very, very tragic times. Allow the body to grieve. We've been told several different stories about, you don't want to focus your tears and be in a slump, but you also have to recognize that in order to heal the emotional, you have to be back in the right environment. In the United States right now, Gifty, we're experiencing what is classified as a mental health crisis. I believe the world is starting to pay notice to the mental health issues that are going on. Can you share with me in your thoughts of where we are on a mental health level, where our audience could recognize the environment they need to be in to get the cause of the issue addressed appropriately?
And so mental health crisis is global. It's not just in the US, right? In the UK, we have the same thing. And there's some staggering statistics, like, I don't know, 1 in 3 women is on some form of, mood enhancing drug, or not enhancing, but you know what I mean, some type of mood modifier thing. And why can't we get through our life and our day without medication, right? And it's because our lives are not in balance. And rather than stopping to say, okay, what's out of whack, let's fix it, right? We get given the Smarties. You get given the medication to allow you to continue on with what is wrong. And that's not a smart move. Do you know? Rather than, and you wouldn't do that with in any other area of your life. But when it comes to your body, or when it comes to your mind, we seem to think, oh, rather than go to the cause, let's not do that. Let's leave the cause and let's go take this thing that allows us to drag the cause around with us. Now, mental health now, hopefully, is losing a stigma. Because it had negative stigma for a long time. Nobody was talking about it in terms of how they're feeling and all the rest of it. And that is still changing. I'm lucky enough to have grown up in Africa. We do grief. When somebody dies, we wail loudly. And it is allowed. There's room to express that. And I mean, I'll tell you a story that'll make you laugh. But when I was young and stuff, when somebody died and his children and stuff were not wailing enough, they literally took them into a room and beat them and sent them out crying because they were supposed to be crying. Right?
I want tears and I want them right now, and I don't care where they come from.
Right.
Gifty, that's a precious story. It really is. It shows us how the Americans are dealing with it too. I want tears. I want them now.
Right, because they realized it was healthy to cry when you were upset, when something was wrong with you, and that you weren't supposed to push it down. Do you know? And when you're in an environment like that, you will not be pushing it down. You will deal with the grief. You will let it out, and then you can then start looking at what can we do about this. I've lost this now. What can I do? Because otherwise, you're spending another lifetime pushing it down, which is a waste of your energy. Now, when I speak to mothers, because I specialize in working mothers, and when they're living these chaotic lives and you know, chasing their career and whatever it is, and being out of balance and snapping with the kids and whatever they think is okay, what I'm saying to them is stop for a minute. Get that balance, because otherwise what you're creating is 2 generations down the line, therapy bills 2 generations down the line, because these kids, they need you to let them know that, you know, it is okay, they're safe, blah, blah, blah. But if you yourself are out of control, right? If you yourself are pushing down the grief, not giving them the permission to grieve, what template are you giving them? Right. And for our sins, our mothers, the research came out from London School of Economics a few years ago about it is the mothers that actually set the emotional template for the kids. Right. So if you are all over the place, that is what they're looking at. That's the template they're inheriting. And so they're not going to learn to process their grief. They're not going to learn to process their stress, because that was not what was modeled at home for them. And then, you know, of course, I'm not trying to do the therapist out of business, but that is what you're doing, ensuring that, you know, they will be there needing that help to learn how to process their grief. So mental health for me should be at the core of everybody's life. What was it? Who was it that said a sound mind and a sound body, or whichever way it goes? You know, that one was about Socrates. I think
I believe it was.
Yes, a sound mind and a sound body. So the mind and the body, those 2 things are linked. They're not independent of each other, and one affects the other. And so if you want to live a fulfilling life, you have to take your mental health seriously. It cannot be a byproduct, and it cannot be something that you think of as an afterthought.
Well, you know, the coming back to that, and you said so many really important pieces of this, and it comes back to understanding that the template is there for your children, that they're going to watch what you do. Take away the stigma that is surrounding mental health, because after all, it is health. And in order to identify a healthcare need, it shouldn't be stigmatized. It should be something that we welcome, that we put into the reality. And I believe as we go back into antiquity, and as you said, a sound mind in a sound body, a mensa sana in corpore sano is a Latin term that really builds on that particular piece. Is if your mind is not sound, your body will be in chaos. And you can ask yourself this: the last time you had a poor night's sleep, your mind was going crazy. It was thinking about, did I make lunch for tomorrow for the kids? Do I have that dinner party? Do I have my husband's suit pressed? And it's 1,010 things. You have to put that mind to rest and have those moments, Gifty, that you so generously shared with our audience. And because at the end of the day, it is that struggle of balance that brings back the template to the rest of the people that are in your environment, and creating that moment to really look at it. And I'm so grateful that you were willing to share that, the grief is part of life, and the tears. Listen, if we weren't supposed to use our tears, we wouldn't have been given them. So figure out why those tears exist. There's tears of joy, there's tears of laughter, there's tears of sadness, there's tears of grief, and they all come out as sailing through our eyes, and it's real. And there should never be a judgmental moment. And I've seen some really tough speakers, really talented individuals at the podium. And this happened last weekend for me. One of the greatest leaders that I respect, adore, and embrace was at tears because of the loss of a child. And I embraced that. And I felt honored that they would dig so authentically into themselves. And I think that's what friendship becomes. It's being able to authentically share how you truly feel and hope that your friend. And I think that's one of the big keys in today's life. Hope that you can find someone in the mental health space to talk to share your thoughts, your traumas, your toxins. Some of it may be your spouse. Some of it may be a friend. It may be a pastor or a priest. But those moments of reflection for your health to get back to balance are really critical. And when you go back to the managing the demands in the modern living life, and you particularly have seen women that have had to juggle the serious stress, travel and employment, staffing, and the pieces that come together, like your lifestyle, where, it's not one thing, it's 500 things. Perhaps you could share the managing of the modern day living, and maybe some of the things you heard while you've been on stage and coming off stage, and what has hit you and how that impacted how you continue to pursue this balance for you.
So, and this is interesting. So I think it was in April that I did my crazy trip where I found myself on, I think, 4 different continents in as many weeks, right? And so you can imagine the time zone challenges and all that. And that was still when COVID was still in the air and everything like that. So it was taking care of myself and making sure that I was staying safe physically, and also making sure that, my mindset was right and that I wasn't living in fear, and all the rest of it. And I thought, so eventually, so I was UK, Canada, US, back to Canada, back to UK, then to Ghana, right? All within 3 weeks. And I used to wake up not knowing which country I was in at one point, right? It was just insane. But how did because I thought by the time I got to Ghana, I'd be a complete wreck and I'll have to stay like a zombie for 1 week. And I didn't. I got there and I enjoyed myself and had fun and ate lots. Now, how did I manage that? Because I have got routines that I stick to. Even when I'm traveling, I understand how to maintain my body. I understand what to do when I'm crossing different time zones. And I have my rituals that I use to sustain myself and to look after myself. And I've lived this way now for so long, and I know the benefits of living that way, that now I will not go back to the time when I wouldn't know whether I was turning left or right to come home or forget people's names. I don't want to go back there. And so when people ask me, in terms of, because I am quite, in terms of my exercise and stuff like that, I'm very disciplined with that. And this is coming from a woman who hated exercise. I absolutely hated exercise. But now it's something I do daily. Now, why? Because I've got the understanding. I know what it does for my body. I know what it does for my mind. I know it helps me to process stress. And eating well, I know exactly what it does for me. Sitting down in meditation on a daily basis. Again, I understand the benefits, and then also making sure that I surround myself with people like you, Sherry. I surround myself with people that, help me to stay up, people that uplift me and take the toxicity out of my life. For me, it's a lifestyle I've chosen, and it allows me to live life at the high level that I choose to live, because that's how I perform best, and that is a choice I make on a daily basis.
Well, it's inspiring to know that you can do 4 continents in a month. And I'm very aware that travel can be one of those hardships, especially when you're trying to give your best wherever you go. And for those that are out there listening, is every day is we're trying to do our best with the resources we have. Well, you know what happens when your resources get low? You need to go back to the well, and you need to read books like Octopus on the Treadmill, and you need to be able to surround yourself with people that you love and adore. And Mother Teresa said it best: if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. I think those are beautiful words, and they're not to be underestimated, because it is the love for each other that inspires, that increases passion, and that builds opportunity. And I love that you get out the toxins by recognizing, I don't know very many people other than the ultra marathoner I just did a podcast with that absolutely loves exercise. But the thing that I got from the ultra marathoner was just like you said, is he said he loves exercising. He loves getting out there and doing his 100-mile runs, which I'm still trying to process, because it gives him a sense of passion and purpose, of being able to break down the barriers to life. And I think that's one of those things that Gifty, you have done so well, is break down barriers for women to also, as they're trying to juggle their family and their career and the loves in their life, is being able to recognize, well, it may not be easy, because I don't think anything in life worth having is in fact easy. Because Gifty, I know you're sitting there right now going, you're right, Sherry, it's not easy. But the thing is, we struggle daily. Every single one of us. Perhaps it's in our health, our organization, our passion. Maybe our lifestyle isn't what we want it to be. Can you talk to our audience today that some of the things, the tips that you do that really do take control of your lifestyle on that holistic standpoint? What would you give maybe the audience 1, 2, or 3 tips that they walk away with today, they implement, and they say, I can do tomorrow maybe a little bit better with more energy, passion, and love in my heart?
So on the physical side, I will say, because like I say, I hated exercise, and it's because I was forcing myself to do things that I hated. There's a whole range of exercises, so just accepting that it's inevitable. You have to exercise, full stop. If you want good health, you have to exercise. And so if this is just like food, you have to eat, right? So if you're going to eat anyway, why waste your resources eating bad food? That's going to make you sick, right? So that you have to do this anyway. So make sure you're going for the best quality. So when it comes to food, it's the same. Eat food, don't eat substances. And exercise, choose what you like to do. I mean, I love yoga, right? I could do yoga until the cows come home. So that's my exercise of choice. I hate running, so I will not be found running, but I will be found walking. I can walk until my legs fell off. So again, do what you love. So the things that you have to do, find what you love in that and do it, if you see what I mean. So, I mean, I will get up even if I'm sick and go walk my dogs, because I love being out there in nature I don't even consider that exercise, but it is, and so, and there's a say with food, and when it comes to what you're putting in your mind, right? Look for things that lift you up. So you need to inspire yourself in terms of what you're putting in your mind, because what you're putting in that brain is what then determines your thoughts. So that is another thing. And so it's the same thing as not eating bad food. Look for good information to put in your brain rather than just being there on social media looking at nonsense, And if you can, not everybody needs this, but I do. If you can, actually, scratch that. I believe everybody needs it, but some people don't realize they do. we are spiritual beings, believe it or not, just in these physical bodies. That's my belief. And you need to nurture that part of you, that connects to the divinity in you, because at some point we all fall short. At some point we all feel we're not enough. At some point you come across something and you think, I can't do it. But if you can tap into an energy bigger, higher than yourself, call it whatever, the universe, God, the divinity, whatever it is for you, right? If you can tap into that and form a relationship with it, that is what is going to help you in the moments that you reach your absolute limits and you think, I can't do this. But then you find that extra energy from somewhere to go that extra step.
That is brilliant. It comes down to a famous Yogi Sherry quote, and I'll share this with you, Gifty, because it wraps you up so beautifully. In the past, there was a pill for every ill. The future, a chiropractor to whom will nurture. And it's that nurturing sense to bring forth the very best in your life. And I can't thank you enough for sharing your time, your talents, and your fantastic resources on a regular basis through her writings. Gifty Enright, look up the book, Octopus on the Treadmill. I think it's going to be a wonderful read. It's the holiday season. And who doesn't need more positive energy, more positive thoughts? That spiritual portion of the holidays, bring them into your life. The exercise, get that exercise in, knowing that you may indulge in some spiked eggnog. You never know. Who knows where we're going to go with the holidays? But listen, it is absolutely a wonder to have you today. And I'm so very grateful for all that you do and the support and passion that you bring forth to many, many people across the globe on 4+ continents, as you had said recently. And we hope to see more writings from you, more information, and have you back on Adjusted Reality podcast again soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
I want to thank you for tuning into Adjusted Reality as we spoke to author and international speaker Gifty Enright about holistic healing and how to incorporate it into your life for overall wellness. Thoughts, trauma, toxins, recognize them, understand them. Take the luxury of time to really look at your life in a holistic manner. It's not just one piece, it's all the pieces coming together. And in fact, it was Socrates, as Gifty said, a sound mind in a sound body that we need to go forward in the future with. And that comes with work, the challenges, the things that we may not want to do, but we know it's the right thing to do. The right thing, filling your life with goodness, wholesome goodness, not wasted time on social media that you're just clicking through, not eating the bag of potato chips or drinking excessively. It's being able to look at each aspect of your life. Where am I going to improve? How am I going to improve it? And reading is one of those very special things that I always like to do, to be able to create an environment where I start thinking more about the things that are ailing or the things that need to be improved on, or just to power the energy on. Listen, you're with Adjusted Reality. It is this podcast that brings forth the best of healing in a fun, relatable way. As a special gift for you listening today, I want you to go to f4cp.org/health to get a copy of our Mind, Body, Spirit ebook, which focuses on many ways that you can optimize your health and the ones you love without the use of drugs or surgery. It is the holiday season, and we know you want to kick it off right. You want to be bright. You want to be brilliant to your family, friends, and loved ones. And that comes with you focusing on you and making yourself the priority, because self-care is awareness, and it's so very important. But please, during the holidays, don't forget me. Don't forget to subscribe, share this podcast with friends and family. I'd love you to rate and review, because more will listen if we have more people sharing the gifts that we have been very fortunately given in our lives. So if you're feeling so inspired to learn more about chiropractic or to find a doctor of chiropractic near you, well, you can simply go to f4cp.org/find-a-doctor. We appreciate your support and look forward to another exciting adjusted reality episode with you listening, my friends. The world will be a better place. All the very best of the holiday season, and I look forward to having you join us for season 5. So keep on the energy and come back for season 5. Very best to all of you.